Thank you so much, Maddie. We're honored today to have Matie Scully subbing for Lily Popova, who is somewhere doing something. And there is the pieces are in the online order of service, but there's an insert in your order of service with the selections that Mattie's playing. Okay, I'm Catherine Rowlee, and I am your lay leader today. I'd like to welcome everybody, all of our congregants and friends, and our visitors, our special guest, Jean Boutilier, and we're happy you're here. I'm happy to see a lot more chairs slowly filling up again. And I'm welcome to everybody still online, and very grateful. So, I have a few announcements. The first, I'd like to say that if you have a joy or a concern, we have a chat box online where you can put your whatever it is you want to share. And we also have little papers in a basket on the green table in the back where you can write what you would like to share, and I'll go get them before we have our joys and concerns time. Also, very excited, we have raised our full $12,500, and we will be given the matching grant, and we're moving forward with being the most technologically awesome congregation around for our Sunday services. So, yay to everybody. And then I also want to say that we are looking for a Sunday preschool teacher, and we want to be interviewing pretty soon. So if you know anybody who's interested, please send them our way, either to me, I'm also the Personnel Committee Chair, or to Robert Tidwell, our DLRE. So this has been a perfect job for like an older high school girl or boy or anybody, a person. And we don't have any of those right now exactly. They all grew up and went away. So if you know anybody, please let us know, or let them know if they're interested. So also, we're going to be having a memorial service for our congregant Nancy Rutherford on June 26th. It's going to be at 3 p.m. And I believe before that is going to be the RE celebration. So we're going to have, just like in the past, we'll have food. We'll have it we'll have it out here, I think. So that's something to look forward to, both of those things. And I want to remind you all that General Assembly, our UUA General Assembly, is taking place starting June 22nd through 26th. And they do it online, too. I think Laura's going. I'm not sure who else is. But it's a wonderful time to connect with other UUs and get some real inspiration. So Google UUA General Assembly. It'll come right up. And there are a few open to the public events that they stream live, like I believe the worship service, the final worship service. And that is really fun. During COVID, I believe we did that, had that as our service. During the height of the beginning of the COVID. So, then lastly, just a little plug. If you're interested in singing, we have choir rehearsal every Thursday at 7 o'clock. And the more the merrier, everybody's welcome. So if you are interested, you can just come and introduce yourself to our choir director, Lily Popova. I don't think there's anything else. Anybody have something burning? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we don't talk about burning too much, I guess, as summer's approaching. So, we will start our service with the sound of the bowl. We sound the bowl 3 times, once for those who came before. Ooh, sorry, you guys. The people who came before, the Tongva, who were the original stewards of this land and called it home long ago. We also honor our ancestors and the founding members of this congregation who imagined and planted this thriving congregation. Okay, we ring it once for those of us here and now. This is not my bowl, so better. Okay, this is for ourselves, our members, our friends, our visitors, our staff, and all of our extended UU family who we hold in our hearts and care about as we grow this beloved community that we call our own. We ring it once for those who will come. Sorry, you guys. Those who will come to find belonging with us and who will call MVUUC their spiritual home in the future. And our opening words are from our book, Lifting Our Voices. Here in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here in this place of rest, let the unrest of our hearts turn us towards justice. Here in this space made sacred by memories of connection, let each of us feel ourselves part of the new that grows from the old in the spiraling unity of years. And please join with me in singing our opening song, which is Come Sing a Song With Me, one of our favorites. And if you're in the sanctuary or at home and you feel like it, please rise in body or spirit. So we will light our chalices now. We light a chalice, the beautiful chalice of our faith gifted to us by our Reverend Maggie, and our Calapayan partnership chalice gifted to our children. And we light it with these words. In these hard times, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement. that our values may guide our choices. Let us look first to the response of love. And I will go down and light this. And let us speak our covenant together, and then we will sing Spirit of Life. And we usually rise in body or spirit. And when we sing Spirit of Life, it's we sing it first in English and then in Spanish, sorry. So let's say our covenant. Okay. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve the world in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. And at this time, we will ask our children to, I guess I'm initiating a new thing that's the old thing. We have some offerings for the Beta Center in the back, and usually our children bring those forward, and we have a child today with us. Thank you. If you could bring those forward and put them in the basket, and maybe somebody has something else you could see. And then we'll sing her to her classes, and there are more children that will join online, I know. Thank you. And I see, Reverend Maggie has something you could put in too. Okay. And the words to our song are in your order of service, and there they are. Okay. And yes, you are so good to remember. Thank you. Have a wonderful class. And now we'll have our Sunday offering, and our offertory is going to be pretty special today. If you have an offering and you're in the sanctuary, come forward and put it in our basket. Remember, we are sustained by our members and friends. So, and if you're online, of course, we have a button on our website that goes to a place to donate, PayPal. And if you wish to put a check in the snail mail, that's fine also. So, Matie's going to sing something special for our offertory. And it goes with a video. So you guys could, I'll bring the basket.
I wanted to say a few words before I sing today. For the past 40 or 50 years, I've always gotten up and performed by singing and playing piano or having an accompanist play piano. That's my preference. However, when I went to find this music, it's a quite famous song, apparently, in England, but also in this country. It was sung by Peter Gabriel, but it was written by Stephen Merrick. Now, Peter Gabriel has pretty darn good taste as far as I'm concerned. I don't usually listen to many rock and roll singers, but Peter Gabriel's a special case. He's a good musician, and he really has very good taste. So he found this lovely song, and he sings this lovely song. But the problem is, this piece cannot be printed in the United States. There's copyright laws. So I couldn't get my hands on the sheet music, which would allow me to play the piano and sing it. So in desperation, because I really wanted to sing this song for you guys, I looked at YouTube, and I found a performance of Peter Gabriel singing it on YouTube, and it was with a video, which I found to be very charming and heartwarming. So today, I would like to sing The Book of Love. There it is. As sung by Peter Gabriel. You'll hear his voice, but not much because I cover him up. And you'll hear the orchestra. Okay? We're ready, Lily. Go ahead.
Thank you. We made it work. One thing you use is very, very, very flexible. And that worked fine. Beautiful. Thank you. So we have some joys and sorrows to, I forgot to look in the basket. Let me look up here too. And so let us just enter into a little time of quiet meditation and contemplation on what has been expressed here today. Let's take a few deep breaths together and quiet our minds and feel our bodies relax as we breathe in and out. Let us feel our hearts open as we celebrate the joys that were expressed here. And let us send out compassion and love for the concerns and the grief, the worries that have been expressed here today. And also holding in our hearts the concerns that have not been expressed today, because we always have those. So to all of those of us who are holding concerns, and I think that's probably all of us, we send our loving compassion and gratitude. And let us also take a moment to send that compassion and love to ourselves as we carry on with our days through our life, doing the best work that we can as we love in the best way that we can. And let us send our loving compassion out beyond these walls to the multitude of beings on this earth who are frightened and struggling, who are suffering. let us remember always that love is the most powerful answer. As we also send compassion to those who we find most difficult. In these trying times, the biggest challenge is to love the ones who we feel are causing the biggest grief. So, take another breath. And blessed be. So I'm honored now to introduce our guest speaker. And I hope I'm saying your name right with my, I hope it's French, because as a Boutilier, right? Jean Boutilier is he's an activist and a resident of Pilgrim Place. And I was put in touch with him by Maribel Dana, who I'm very grateful for. He's on the board of the housing for Claremont, and he's given me a very short bio. He's been a pastor, and he's been an organizer, an activist. He's been organizing in farm labor, anti-poverty work, anti-hunger work, in shelter, sanctuary, refugee, and asylum work. He's ecumenical, interfaith, and he's involved in other justice-related topics. He's a little powerhouse of change and activism. And he is also the founding executive of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. So I'd like to welcome Jean to the pulpit.
Hi. Hello. Very, very glad to have this opportunity to visit with this community, which has many friends at Pilgrim Place who know the work of this congregation over the years. The theme is going to be the building of one tiny little permanent supportive housing project in Claremont, and how it's being framed by the supporters, by the opponents who are struggling to make a case for why it should not be in their backyard, and by the broad issues of the future of America as articulated by the Poor People's Campaign. Because just a couple of weeks from now, on June 18th, is going to be this great mass assembly in Washington, D.C. of the modern Poor People's Campaign. I'm going to read in a couple of minutes the call that they are making, a call I'm responding to. I will be there with a grandchild. In 1968, just before his murder, Dr. King announced and launched with Southern Christian Leadership Conference and a whole bunch of allies a campaign to gather from across the nation to come to D.C. to declare a moral obligation to change the priorities from the war to reconstruction and alleviating poverty, and taking a broad look at how civil rights has to affect all the parts of our political life. Against the advice of a whole lot of civil rights leaders who said, you can't mix these issues, you'll lose supporters, he went ahead and organized, just before his murder, the Poor People's Campaign. Some of the participants rode towards District of Columbia by mule train. I was part of that. On behalf of the National Council of Churches, I was helping local folk move and tell their story with a mule train that came up from Marks, Mississippi. For many of the daily events over several very difficult weeks, I helped with hospitality of that event and attended with my young family. I was living in D.C. representing Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers and the farm worker movement as a lobbyist. 54 years later, poor people from around the nation are mobilizing again. We will gather in a great moral assembly led by poor people with their allies. The Unitarian Universalist Association Side with Love campaign and the Unitarian Universalist for Social Justice are a couple of the many mobilizing partners for this assembly. The principal organizers are Reverend William Barber II and Reverend Liz Theoharis, and I'll be there. And the reading today is portions of the call to that assembly. Listen especially to the listing of 5 interlocking immoralities. In 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many others called for a revolution of values in America. They sought to build a broad fusion movement that could unite poor and impacted communities across the country. Their name was a direct cry from the underside of history, the Poor People's Campaign. Today, the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, has picked up this unfinished work. From Alaska to Arkansas, from the Bronx to the border, people are coming together to confront the interlocking evils of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism in the war economy, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. We understand that as a nation, we're at a critical juncture. We need a movement that will shift the moral narrative, impact policies and elections at every level of government, and build lasting power for poor and impacted people. We'll demonstrate the power of poor people to be agents of change in not just one election, but at the very heart of our democracy. In this time of significant danger and real possibilities, a moral fusion movement is necessary to revive and advance our most precious constitutional and moral values. But this can only happen if the impacted link up with other moral leaders and people of conscience to break through the silos of our work and the divisions that have been wrought in our communities. Our ranks will increase as we broaden our efforts and stretch the banner of the Poor People's Campaign and National Call for Moral Revival ever larger. We'll rise up together. We rise to demand that 140 million poor and low-income people in our nation, every race, creed, color, sexuality, and place, are no longer ignored, dismissed, or pushed to the margins of our political and social agenda. We rise not as left or right, Democrat or Republican, but a moral fusion movement to build power, build moral activism, build voter participation. We won't be silent anymore. We rise to change the moral narrative and demand that the interlocking injustices, which are already listed, be ended. We rise to challenge the lie of scarcity in the midst of abundance, and we rise to lift the voices and faces of poor and low-income Americans and their moral allies with a new vision of love, justice, and truth for America that says poverty can be abolished and change can come. So the Mass Poor People's and Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March in Washington will happen June 18th. You'll be able to watch it on the tube. It will be a generationally transformative declaration of the power of poor and low-wealth people and their moral allies, saying the system as it is killing all of us. And we won't refuse to be silent anymore. So that's the big picture. And now I want to bring it down to one little building, which is building up all the controversies that big issue raises in our town of Claremont. You know there's a housing crisis. I can list the reasons, but you know most of them already, every one of you out here. Why is it that we don't have enough housing? And you also know that there's a huge number of homeless people, and you know many of the reasons, and you know the myths behind the stereotypes that the reasons are all about addiction, or they're all about mental illness, or and you know that they have to do with systemic racism, low minimum wages, exploitation of workers, and the lack of housing. So that even if people with a perfect emotional health ran out of money, got evicted from where they were, they are just as homeless as if they were users of crack cocaine. And that you know that, like some of us in this room, many of them are elderly people whose pension didn't turn out and whose jobs were interrupted by circumstances, including disabilities of all kinds. Not just addiction, but cancer, heart disease, and all the things that can hit any of us. And in this culture have led to massive, massive amounts of homelessness. So, what to do about it? And so for decades now, politicians have struggled to come up with solutions for housing and homelessness, and also listen carefully to constituents who are saying, don't do it, not in my backyard. Do it somewhere else. I believe in helping the homeless, why I even went to the mission and helped at Thanksgiving Day to hand out, but this is the wrong place. This is the wrong kind of people to serve. And we listen to that struggle over and over again. She mentioned that I was the first executive director of the government agency, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. I'm going to tell you a story about its origin because it helps to tell the struggle. The city of Los Angeles sued the county of Los Angeles and said, you're causing homelessness and you're dumping it on us. You haven't raised your minimum, your general relief payments in years. You don't spend enough money on mental health. You don't spend enough money on addiction. You don't spend enough money on general health. And you're causing homelessness and dumping it on us. The county could have said, okay, let's talk. Instead, they hired an outside law firm and spent a whole lot of money suing the city back and saying, Los Angeles, you're another. You have gotten federal money and you've used it for things other than helping the homeless. You've got a lot of restrictive zoning. You've torn down a lot of your SROs. You're causing homelessness, and you expect us to provide the services. Finally, a judge said, children, you're going to play together. You're going to create a joint powers authority, and you're going to give it some money. Nobody from the city could take the job. The county wouldn't let them of starting this agency. They didn't trust the city. Nobody from the city could take the job. The county didn't. The 5 county supervisors wouldn't agree. So they had to have some outsider, and I was the outsider. And so we, in the first year, got it from no office and no staff up to 60, 70 million. Finally, I got forced out by the mayor, because Reardon, who accused me of being a visionary. My resignation letter almost exactly matched the one which Heather announced her resignation as the director of LASA just a couple of weeks ago. She's been forced out, like some of my successors, because we are not of one political mind at all about how to deal with this issue. So then, let's bring it down, down, down from the great big picture to that picture of a lack of housing and homelessness, to Pilgrim Place had a little piece of property on Harrison Avenue. And Pilgrim Place residents and staff talked for some years about how we could do something really useful with this piece of property. The city hasn't built affordable housing in years, very low income housing in many years. It's under great pressure to do so. Our elected representatives at the county and the state level, and many of them at the national level, have tried to address homelessness by demanding that local governments allow this kind of housing to develop. But of course, there's great resistance. So Pilgrim Place offered to the city, it will make this property available. It's already zoned institutional residential. It's surrounded by churches and big facilities for residential care of us us elderly people. So we're not homeless. And a good site for it. And so the city worked with a developer that was also agreed to by Pilgrim Place to build one little building of 34 units of permanent supportive housing for people who have experienced homelessness and have disabilities. That was the plan. And so there is now pressure from the state. The city must deliver a certain number of units of building up in the next few years. It's a RENA obligation. This would help them a lot to do that. So the city leadership at the staff level is, of course, very happy to work with us on this development. 5 city council members, a couple of them, maybe 3 of them are pretty squishy because they're hearing lots of pressure from the other side. But we need this housing, don't we? And we need it here and there and there and there. But every place, not in my backyard, not near me. And then the myths come forward. And the myths include stereotypes about who is homeless. They're dangerous. They're going to come after our children. They're pedophiles. They're going to leave their needles all over our neighborhood. And it goes on and builds up from that. Now, there is a lot of fear that all of us feel about safety. We would like to be safe. We would like our children to be safe, absolutely. But the fear can be exploited by fear-mongering. It can be amplified. It can be blown up with misinformation and disinformation until a project, which is really going to work very well, is accused of being this horrible monster. And so that's what we as communities of goodwill need to organize to overcome. It's really just that simple. We're dealing with demonizing, and religious communities like this understand getting past demonization to the truth about love and acceptance and tolerance and welcoming and inclusion and compassion. And so that's our challenge. It's just taking those principles that you repeat in your covenant, that you say to each other in this sanctuary, and applying them to this project and this project and this project, and saying, yeah, bring it on. Put it in my backyard. It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to read a letter that I stuck into the Claremont Courier, attempting to answer back to some of the objections that were raised. You can test out whether or not this fits the kind of tone that we ought to be using. I'm so sorry that there's been a spread of misinformation and a fearful exaggeration of the impact on our part of town of the development of Larkin Place on Harrison Avenue. I've listened to many neighbors. We all have legitimate concerns about being safe and secure. Sometimes that concern morphs into fearful outrage, but the majority of people who live or work or shop or worship in our city all know the extreme statewide need for affordable housing and for housing unhoused folks. The majority of us know every single part of the state needs to do our fair share. It's compassionate. It makes things better. It's our moral and civic duty. I have studied the reputation of the nonprofit Jamboree Housing Corporation back to when they started in 1990. I'm convinced by the solid evidence that Larkin Place and its residents will be a good neighbor. Jamboree will fulfill its contractual obligations and connect their tenants up with trustworthy regional and local health and service providers. Some lives will get better. It's untrue that they don't screen, interview, and background check prospective permanent tenants. It's untrue that they can't forbid and, as a responsible landlord, effectively manage any bad behavior that impacts other people. It's untrue that they can't evict tenants if necessary. What they won't do is evict tenants of their supportive housing without a corrective next step somewhere else. They are contractually obligated not to evict to the street, but to some other level of care somewhere else if it doesn't work. I'm so disappointed to hear scare tactic exaggeration, imagining 3 tenants overcrowding each unit. They're mostly single adults with some couples, just as in all the similar programs of permanent supportive housing. I'm saddened to hear vividly imagined fear that these needy apartment tenants, so lucky to be rehoused, might be predator monsters. And it's astonishingly unfounded that this one building, surrounded by other large institutions in group housing, could conceivably affect Claremont property values. Is this going to make the houses go down in price in Claremont? This one 34-unit building stuck in between the Quaker Church and a park? I predict that after this apartment building of 32 homes gets built, a few years from now, the Claremont civic leaders who supported this development will look back with relief and satisfaction. Larkin Place will be a much-needed social service success. It will help Claremont comply with mandatory regional housing requirements. It will look good. The fear and worry about these new neighbors will evaporate as neighborly reality sets in over time. Claremont leaders will have done the right thing, hung in there, listening to the quieter, compassionate majority, and some lives will have gotten much better. That's what I think will happen. But before that, we have work to do as a community of faith and goodwill, which is to listen to this YIMBY attack, understand it, love the people who are doing it, urge as many of them as possible towards understanding that there is spreading misinformation, and then outvoting them. That's the kind of challenge that we have over and over on little issues, this issue, this building, that program, this minimum wage law, this expansion of the child tax credit, until bit by bit, we're doing what the Poor People's Campaign is calling for at the great big picture. A different America with a lot more compassion and a lot more opportunity and a lot more kindness and an inclusion and love that meets our standards as a community of faith. So be it.
Sometimes I forget I have a mask on. I wear one so much. I do, all day teaching for hours and hours. Thank you. You really illuminated some people about what is the project all about. I know a lot of people had questions, and then you have support here. So if there's anything we can do or any way we can be more involved, please let us know. And we have our song. Let's sing it with vigor. It's one more step. So rise in body and spirit, and let us sing one more step. be extinguishing our chalice quite yet, so hold on.
She mentioned that I spent a number of years working with Cesar Chavez in the United Farm Workers Movement as a lobbyist and a boycott leader, and in other roles. There's a closing thought often attributed in publications to Cesar. It actually, in his words, it comes out of the movement, and it comes from the people of the United Farm Workers. Show me the suffering of the most miserable, so I will know my people's plight. Free me to pray for others, for you are present in every person. Help me to take responsibility for my own life so that I can be free at last. Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there is true life. Give me honesty and patience so I can work with other workers. Bring forth song and celebration so that the Spirit will be alive among us. Let the Spirit flourish and grow so that we will never tire of the struggle. Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life. Help us love even those who hate us, so that we can change the world. Amen.
That is so inspiring. So, thank you so much. And now we have a special little event you may see. Today is Lily Noah Roberts' last day with us, our last Sunday. And if I'd like to call up Alan and Reverend Maggie, and we would like Lily to come out of her, you know where she is, in the closet. And and we like to thank her in front of everybody here. Come on, Lily. So come on up. And I'm not sure how to do this. I think we all need to, is the mic on still for, could we use a mic? Okay, well, we'll just talk loud. So, are we good to be, you can hear us, right? And Zoom can hear us. Okay, come here. Here we are. Let me put my mask on. Don't mind, I just to be nice to you. Lily saved us. Okay? She came in to like a pretty unknown situation, and she had the guts to figure out how to do it. And she did a beautiful job, and we're very grateful for her as she's moving on in her life. She's not going to be gone. We'll probably see her at church occasionally, I hope. And we have her assistant. She is trained very well. Jarius is in there right now holding this together, and we are so really blessed by the fact that you came to us and served us in the way you did, and we want to thank you. There's really nothing we could give you that would thank you enough, but know that your love, we love you so much, and that's never going to go away. So this is for you. It has a lot of buds. So it's going to take a lot of blooming. It's going to keep going just like your life. And we also have a little gift in here and a little card. So yes. And so know that this is always a home to you, and we thank you, and we love you.
I'm not sure what else to say. You did a great job, thank you. Except that when we were on Zoom and then considering maybe we could do a hybrid safely, and we tried. And it didn't work, so we realized, we really need someone who's willing to just keep at it until we get this figured out. We got to get this figured out. And that's when Lily came to us. And she was answered prayer, if I couldn't call her anything else. So now our prayer for you is for your life to just go exactly as you hope, and that you're filled with blessings and love and everything. Okay, and we do love you. And we will miss you. Yes.
And so now I will extinguish the chalice with these words that we can say together if you'd like. They're in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
You don't want that.
Oh, no, should we sing it now? Yes, we're gonna sing. I'm sorry, I told her in that part. Oh, Lily,
Can
we're
you
gonna
come
sing
back
to
up?
you.
We're gonna sing the children out edition.
Okay, we're gonna sing the same song we sing our children out with. Okay, now the prelude. Postlude, I always do that. It's a prelude, it's a postlude, a postlude's a prelude. We're going forward.